The only thing I think we need to worry about with the DUR at the moment is pushing back on anyone who's kind of going, oh, it's a free-for-all now, everything's much laxer. I don't know if it will be the case so much with this one, but I definitely saw it with the Data Protection Act, people telling me, oh, GDPR doesn't apply now because we've got Data Protection Act, or the new bill that didn't become a bill.
Yeah.
Definitely people were going, oh, we can stop worrying about GDPR because there's a new one. Obviously, that one didn't come in. We've had the DUR instead. And I haven't heard people say the same thing, but there will be some, I'm sure, kind of going, oh, does this replace GDPR? Sorry, Susan.
My county council only thinks the Data Protection Act applies to it. Oh. And I have pushed back time and time again to say, actually, no, you need to look at all the legislation. It all applies to you.
Yeah. And I think John Baines did a very good post on that. Yeah, John Baines did a really good post on the areas of law that still apply with the DUR. So the UK GDPR, that potentially the EU GDPR, if you're doing stuff with Europe.
Depending on where you're.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on what you're doing. So everything will still apply. It's just now more nuanced. You've got to look in different places to see what you're applying to. So I still think the general way we should be telling all clients is, if you're aligning yourself to the EU GDPR as is now, then you're going to be in a good place, because everything else is going to fall pretty much under that wrapper, or it's going to be less of a requirement. So still aim high and encompass the worst case scenario. I still think is very good advice. Any consultancy to give any of their clients really is aim high, and then you can obviously be doing better than the minimum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, certainly as an organisation, we have taken the EU GDPR as
the gold standard,
the whole organisation, because we have centres in Asia, in Africa, in South America. But if you try to follow the EU GDPR, you're probably going to meet all the legislation.
There will be nuances that are specific, but generally you're right.
It's a really good, absolutely good place to aim for. And if you have got anyone, sort of pushing back and going, oh, it means we don't need to do anything, just tell them to shut up and go away in the nicest possible way. So is anyone getting any questions is the other part of this. I asked this question at Dish the other day and you all said no, you weren't getting much questions or any questions. No, that's still the case. Oh, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because when it was the first bill, a lot of people were going, oh, panic, what do we need to do? And I said, nothing. I
think there's more focus on macroeconomic things that are going at the moment. I think,
there's other things, isn't there, that are taking
Iran, Trump, the world, Israel, all the stuff that's going on that's affecting economies and businesses generally. So anything to do with specific compliance verticals, most people are like, la, can't deal with it.
Absolutely,
Keep the lights on.
You can't blame them, really. You can't blame them. I do completely understand. So what I would rather talk about today, because I say it's not like everything's going to change overnight. It's not like a lot's going to change anyway. So apart from that thing about the SARS, that now it is enforceable now, that as it is codified in law, that we only need to do a reasonable search for a SAR. I think that's really useful, and we need to remember that bit. And if there's so much.
Does it define what a reasonable?
That's exactly what I was going to say. What's your
search is?
So it doesn't.
Because what's reasonable to me might not be reasonable to somebody else.
Yes, and this is a really interesting point in law, in all laws, and all contracts will use the word reasonable liberally, and sort of say we'll make reasonable efforts and all that kind of thing, and the sort of. Now, remember, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a law expert at all. This is kind of just picked up from various different places over the years, including working with a bunch of amazing lawyers. But it sort of comes down to Oh, that's just made me think. Sorry, a lot of what I learned about law and about contracts was from a lovely man called Adrian that I worked with at ACS, and he's no longer with us. And I was thinking about him for the other day for some reason. He's just popped back in my mind. So he and his colleagues sort of explain this reasonable thing sort of comes back to common law of what would the average person think was reasonable. Now, of course, what's the average person?
Yeah,
So it used to be when in the olden days of health and safety law, because I used to do health and safety before as well. Many of you have heard me talk about that. They talked about the man on the Clapham omnibus. So it was your average working class man on a bus in Clapham. What he might think was reasonable, because of course the working man represents us all, doesn't it? So it's arguable, I think, is probably the best way to say it. It is about what would the average person think is reasonable, but you stick reasonable in the contract, you are going to have two sets of lawyers. If something goes wrong, if the contract's working, absolutely fine, nobody's going to argue over what the word reasonable means. It's only once one side says you've breached, that wasn't reasonable.
So yeah, this is where I think it's down to what you basically do and you give to the data subject in the response. If they don't think that you've been thorough enough and there's things that are definitely missing that they think should have been included, that's exactly when they're going to come back and say, I don't think you've been very reasonable here in terms of what you've done. So yeah, it's a balancing act, really.
But I would warn, you don't want to tell the data subject, the requester, too much about how you have searched, because that's none of their business, really. No. You have
down to their interpretation of what reasonable is.
You have that, because their reasonableness would be, you do everything with a fine-tooth comb and you spend every hour for months and months doing it. I'm sure a lot of people would think that was reasonable. But you've got to justify it to the ICO at the end of the day if it goes to a complaint. And that's fairly easy to do at the moment, I would say.
I think where this has been kind of put in as the ICO, this is now the law, this is what is expected. I think it would be a good idea for organisations to potentially add something to their DSAR policy or process to say, this is what we define as reasonable in terms of how we would go about searching for or think, and literally define what is reasonable. Then you as individuals that are working this can basically follow it. So if you are then challenged by a data subject saying, we've defined a reasonable approach within the business and this is how it is, and then you've got a defensible position that you can go back to the data subject and or you can go back to the ICO if challenged, and they can always say, actually, we think that's quite fair, shut up data subject, or they can say, actually, organization, we think that's probably a little bit, a bit narrow in scope. So that's what I would suggest.
That's a really good idea, Dave.
That's a really good idea, Dave, because I'm looking at our DSAR policy, not that we've only ever had 2 DSARs, and they've both been against HR. And I completely understand why. I was just going, oh yeah, yes, you're right, data subject. You are absolutely right. Our HR team is wrong, but we're looking at the DSAR process. So actually updating the process and the policy around it would be.
Exactly. I think it's going to be really helpful for the organisation from a defensive position, helpful for all the users that are managing the DSARs and doing on the daily basis, and also helpful if challenged by the data subject itself. So it ticks a lot of the boxes, and the accountability principle tick.
Absolutely. I would also warn that it doesn't apply, because I've had a few people have sort of said, oh, that's great, then we can apply it in this way, which I'm about to describe, which isn't how it applies. That they're saying, oh, well, if we do a search and we get 3 million responses to that search, search results come back, 3 million emails, documents, whatever. That's too many. It's not reasonable to go through them. That's not how it applies. It's making sure you search properly, reasonably, not going, oh, well, we did our search and there's too many responses, because to me, that means your search wasn't very good then.
Or it means you've got too much data in the first place that you shouldn't have, and you're not following the minimization principle.
Yes.
So that's down to failures on other aspects. So very much.
But if it's this type of thing that you do see a lot, that they've put the search in, they just put the person's name in, and they're doing the search based on what they've been told to do by the data subject. Again, those of you who've heard me talk about SARS before, you'll know that I say you do not follow what the data subject tells you to do. If they say search for Dave Wiley, David Wiley, just DW. No, Dave, we're not going to do that. Because if we put Dave into a search, there's going to be all the people that are known as Dave,
and there's
all their emails, all their emails to, from, CC'd in, all of those kind of things. And that is not appropriate. So to me, that wouldn't be a reasonable search. You've done a silly search there, and you've done what the data subject told you to do, which absolutely isn't their place to. So for me, it would be, you would work out, can we do a better designed search if we're going to do an electronic search? But actually, can we do a more manual based one, which is more likely to get us what we want in the first place? So we know that this person, like with your examples there, Susan, it's HR they're unhappy with. We know they're going through a grievance or something, or a disciplinary. So that's kind of the target. So that's the middle of your target. So I would start with that. Go to the files about the grievance, go to the people that are involved in the grievance or disciplinary or whatever it is, and start with them. You should have proper files in one place about it, but you might also have things on people's desktops, blah, blah, blah. We know we all do it, except Dave. I know Dave doesn't. He's really good at his files.
My halo slips and chokes me.
The rest of us mortals do it. But there will be stuff, but they will be around those people who are involved. They won't be in random, far-flung places that you'll never find. Then you can start working outwards if and when you've got time. So you would start looking at the data that you've got from that search, that more manual search. We've gone to the grievance to start with. Then you might see a thread and start pulling at that thread and going, oh, look, there was a thing that went on here and there was some discussion. So let's just pull at that and see where that takes us if you've got time. That is always my recommendation. To me, that's a reasonable and proportionate search. It's the problem is they're just sticking some initials in and expecting I've even seen searches that have come back, because obviously whoever's done the search isn't putting rules around the search, where if they put maybe Sam's initials SE and it's come back with every word that's got SE in it. So every time it says purpose, which I'm sure in every organisation it says a lot, you've got SE. So there's a mix of things to do there. You can do a better electronic search, but not always my preferred starting point.
Yeah,
I think starting point is always
going
where you know
exactly.
when you know they're interested. Usually why people are doing a SAR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just by looking at their file.
Yeah, Susan, I think when you're doing that kind of process and policy, this is potentially where you can put in some more specific guidance on how to perform a search properly, and what to use. Do this, don't do that, because it's not going to help. And I think that for a lot of users is actually quite useful. It's more of a process aspect of implementing the policy and the guidance that you're putting out. So you're basically, really guiding them, saying to make your life easier and the organization's life easier, and for us to be able to hit the timeline. If we do it this way, we will get what we need. If you do it that way, we won't get what we need.
And one of our DSAs was from a former employee who left under less than salubrious circumstances. But it's following your point, Dave, how much data is being kept on people totally unnecessarily. And there were a whole lot of documents that related to this person that should have been deleted years previously.
Absolutely.
Because they were totally irrelevant, but they were still being held, even though he was being part of the organisation. And there was just going, well, no, you should have deleted these straight away.
Yeah, and that's the kind of whole kind of leaver process. That's, you know, a lot of leaver processes that I see are very kind of high level, you know, disconnecting people from systems, yada yada, all the kind of logical and basic things. What it doesn't talk about is retain data about these individuals, what should happen, and what's the checklist with that. Are they, for this system, make sure this retention is set so they then, you know, their records deleted in whatever. This is the actual practicality of putting in place what a policy says or what a checklist says and actually doing it in reality. And that's where virtually every organization I've ever seen, been in, worked in, audited, that's where it always falls down. It just doesn't happen. They've got a lovely, you know, retention policy on a piece of paper, doesn't match anything that happens in reality, because the system doesn't support the retention flags, and, you know, you've got to manually do it, and people just don't have time and they forget about it. And that's, I suppose, the creme de la creme of a DPO role, is to do mini audits and check this type of stuff. Just go into systems on a, you know, quarterly basis saying, right, I'm going to do these systems. Is the retention process actually working? It's that type of thing that you can pick up on stuff like that, hopefully earlier than if just leave it to people just to do and follow policies and processes and it never happens.
And then when you have a SAR, you find that you've kept everything forever.
And people who keep data just in case they might need it. And you just go, no, I don't want to hear that phrase ever.
I do not want to hear just in case. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh dear. Sorry, so I could talk about SARS all day, as you can tell, but I do want to just do a quick run through of DPAs versus DSAs, because that was specially requested. And I might add a little something at the end that I want to talk about as well. So let me jump into, if I can get my mouse to work. There we go. So this was the third Hive I ever ran. So quite a while ago. But we talked about DPAs and DSAs and what's the difference.
quite early in my journey, I believe. So
yes, I think it probably was. Yeah. So that's been a useful reminder. Good.
A really good reminder. Thank you.
Good. Jasmine, hello. You have a hand up.
Yes, I thought I'd put my hand up because I'm quietly in the background, so I don't want to just jump in. But yeah, it's really helpful because this is something that's come up recently. We've sort of had our data protection officer retired, so we've been appointing sort of someone new, and we're dealing with the task that we've currently got, which currently fall to me. And this is part of one of the issues we've had. So we don't really have that many DPAs questions coming to me, and I sort of went back and had a look and thought, when have we last done a DPA? This seems a bit strange, which then opened up this can of worms of, oh, but we got this recently, don't you know about this? And I'm thinking, I think I've woken up on a different planet to start with. And then I go to these people and say, did you need to do this DPA? Should I know about this? And then they responded, from me asking a question about 2 systems to, we've got these 11 new contractors. Did you need us to send out a data processing agreement? I thought my mind was absolutely blown.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, you've already appointed them, we're using them, and now you're retrospectively saying, do you need to send out this form? And they've plucked a sort of generic form out of our IT policy that they're going to get people to sign, which just says like Appendix X from IT policy. And they're like, we'll send them out and we'll send them back to you. And I said, have we got like proper contracts? Has anyone looked at the contracts? Who's looking at these contracts as well? Have we got anything in place? Because we had 2 data breaches from 2 new contractors that we appointed within hardly any time of us appointing them. And the first question I said is, what is in place? Have we got these agreements and these contracts? And everyone just sort of looks like I'm talking in a different language. They're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is happening? So this is very useful to now go back and, sort of underpin what I'm saying is, I don't know what processes we've been following, but they're certainly not the right ones. But I don't know if that's just us or if anyone else is having these conversations with people
very
just
common.
doing what they want to do, and you only find out about it because you heard someone having a conversation whilst you walk past them and your head turns around and you think, what did you just say? And then you go and chase them down like, there is a data protection person
waving a DPA at them.
It's like living in a cupboard or something, and we shouldn't come out because we're going to stop them doing things. I think, oh my goodness.
And I think that's where I'm useful, because I know how it all fits together, and I know all the different parts of the organisation, and I've
been there a long time, haven't you?
32 and a half years, and yes, it's a long time. You get less than murder these days, but
it's about keeping your ear to the ground, isn't it?
I will look at things, look at contracts and agreements slightly differently from others, because I go, well, are you looking at this? Have you thought about this? What, and people, they go, oh yes, but it reads fine, and you just go, no, but one word can change the meaning. So
absolutely,
you need to look at all of these agreements, and I try to have good relations with all of the people, and in procurement and everything, but sometimes you hear about things and you just go, what? We're doing what?
Absolutely. And yes, you are hearing about these things just from talking to people, Jasmine, but I think we can help you look at a bit of sort of privacy by design type things that Dave is really good at reminding me that I need to think about for clients. But there will be certain touch points where you can get into that process and build something in that says you have to think about this at this point. So that would be worth us looking at together, probably. Even if you just wanted a quick chat, we could have a little talk about that and see if there's something we could help make things a bit smoother for you, especially if you're on your own at the moment. You don't have a a DPO?
We have a DPO who's interim sort of like picked that.
Right.
But in terms of the day-to-day managing of anything data protection, information governance, that's me.
Right.
But yeah, we are getting new people in. It's just in that middle, and we're getting a head of procurement coming in, which I am very excited about, because I think that will,
Yeah.
you know, help with a lot of these issues. And we're looking at, you know, things from like you said, that culture perspective, thinking data protection by design, which I say, I don't know if people are, you know, running with it. It's like we need to be doing this. It's not a, oh, that sounds annoying, or that sounds like an additional process, or that sounds like work. It's like, it doesn't matter what it sounds like, that is what we need to be doing.
And if we can make it part of everyone's process, that, you know, procurement can't procure without thinking about it, or people can't launch a project without thinking about it, that's where we need to catch them. So yeah, I'll drop you a message later and just arrange a really quick chat, if that's okay, Jasmine, and see if we can help. I just want to share this as well, because it's been something I keep coming back to loads this week. While I've been having a wobbly week, I have been trying to keep bringing myself back to, is it done it? No. Keep bringing myself back to my matrix. I cannot get it to share. Let's do it on Word then. Let's do a blank. So some of you will have seen this before, but I just want to do it as a reminder. Is that sharing a blank page for you now?
It is.
It is. Good. Okay, let's see. Can we draw? Well, you can draw. I've been trying to come back to my audits and things. I know so many of us are just firefighting and not getting to the point of audit. So if we can prioritise not using urgent and important, because everything feels urgent and important, but is it going to get us closer to our goal, our job, what is our job to do? Then if it's going to get us closer to our goal, then it goes up in number 1. Does it go across to 2? Will depend on how much you need to put into it. I heard something brilliant yesterday about just because you spend a lot of time on something doesn't make it important. And just because, so it kind of contradicts what you said earlier about what you had on your course. And also, just because you do something really well doesn't make it important either. And that's a lesson for me.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty for me. Yes. Yeah. I can absolutely find things to do that I can, tweak and play with and make them perfect. And actually, they're not really moving the dial. Yeah. So I've gone over a couple of minutes there. Sorry about that, but thank you for being with me. I hope that's been useful.
It's been very useful.
Thank you.
It's been quite a free-form one today. It's been quite fun. So we don't have one in August. We don't have a Hive in August because it is holiday season. I'm actually going offline for the first 3 weeks of the summer holidays. Bit scary. But the team, including Dave, will be here holding the fort. We've got Sue and Vicky, Eloise as well. Some of you might know Eloise Robertson. She is joining the team. So you will be in safe hands, and I will come back refreshed and raring to go, I'm sure.
I'm glad you will be, because I won't be.
I'm not so sure with what's coming up.
We'll be back for Dish on the 21st of August, the Dish Q&A, and then we'll be back to the Hive Online in September the 3rd. And of course, we have the Hive Live in October the 15th. So we're looking forward to seeing some of you there, or all of you, if possible.
Yeah.
So brilliant. Thank you for hanging on for another few minutes while I've waffled on. It's lovely to see you all. And you've really lifted my spirits. So thank you.
Good.